Okay, hi everyone. I'm going to show you how to create the KPIs for food, beverage, and agriculture products. I'll start out by showing this Google Doc that we've set up. The way that this starts is that over time we've sort of created these rules that after you're done with the CSP, there's a given list of hotspots on that CSP. And as you can see in column A, we have a lot of the commonly identified hotspots. So we've set up these rules to where if a certain hotspot exists in the product, then that means that we need to add a KPI that we've already developed off the shelf for that hotspot. So you can see, for example, child labor use. If you have that hotspot in your product category, then you need to add the KPI called child labor on farm. This is sometimes a one-to-many relationship. So if you'll see, let's find one that follows that, crop protection chemical application. So this hotspot actually appears in this list 3 times because there are actually 3 KPIs that need to appear in your product if you have this hotspot. Now, there may be some exceptions to that rule. Maybe if on your CSP, if the hotspot does not discuss these things that are covered in these key performance indicators, it may be the case that one or a couple of them may not be applicable. But for the most case, usually if this hotspot is identified on your CSP, it relates to all of these issues. So this is sort of the map of hotspots to KPIs. And then the third column I want to tell you about is where we've stored this default KPI in the database. And anytime if you want to see an updated version of this map and of this list, we've stored a copy on the database and we will keep that updated. So I'm going to show you where that is. So if you're on the home page of the database and you want to get to that hotspot KPI map for FBA, you would just go to Shared Documents over here on the left. And in Research or Training Documents, click on that folder. And you'll see right here, we've added this Excel file called FBA Hotspot to KPI Map. And if you were to open that up, it would look exactly like what I'm showing you right here, except that would be the place to go in the future to see the most updated list. I did want to bring up down at the bottom some weird rules we have that you need to be aware of. Actually, this is not right. Let me add something down here. This is what I want to take out. Okay, there we go. Okay, so these are the weird rules that I want to talk about. So some hotspots, 2 hotspots that we have sometimes in the product categories are energy consumption for crop protection chemical manufacturing, and then there's also one for energy consumption fertilizer manufacturing. This is a little bit of a weird one because sometimes your product category may only have the crop protection chemical one, but sometimes it might only have the fertilizer one, or sometimes it might have both. If you only have crop protection chemical manufacturing, this is the KPI you would use. So it would only be about crop protection chemical manufacturing. If you only have the fertilizer manufacturing hotspot, then you would only use the KPI that refers to fertilizer manufacturing. But we've actually developed a third KPI that covers both cases. So we have a KPI that covers fertilizer and crop protection chemical manufacturing together at the same time. And so if you were to have both of these hotspots, in your product category, then you would use this KPI instead. So that's a little bit of a weird rule. That's why I pulled it out separate so you can see that. And then a conversation ahead of time just about improvement opportunities. And I'll walk you through this once we get into it. But for improvement opportunities, we sort of have a rule usually that if a hotspot is attached to a KPI, then you should also attach all the improvement opportunities that are attached to that hotspot to the KPI, except for the mapping improvement opportunity. Now, there might be exceptions to this rule, and so if there are, of course, we can do it, but I'll show you it's easier to handle it this way when you're editing the KPIs so that you don't have to go through each one by one and say, does this apply or not? It's kind of easier to do that on the back end. So we'll talk more about that later. And then, as I was mentioning, the mapping improvement opportunity. So we have this improvement opportunity called Mapping Supply Chain Agricultural Land Use. And that improvement opportunity is attached to all of the on-farm hotspots, but we do not want to attach that improvement opportunity to any of the KPIs except for the sourcing on-farm KPI. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask a lead researcher or the research manager. Okay, so moving on. From this list, I've actually developed a map for what KPIs should be in what products for batch 8. So I'm going to show you this next sheet. So in batch 8, we have seed oil, sugar, high fructose corn syrup, beans, nuts, tomatoes, potatoes, and stone fruit. So those are the products that we are currently creating KPIs for. And you'll see in column A, I have several of the KPIs that were mentioned in this, this previous sheet that we were talking about. So using these rules on this sheet, I was able to go through the CSPs for each of these products and make a map of which hotspot should be in that product. Now, I'll kind of show you just quickly how I did that. It's actually a really quick process. So I'm going to open up another page here. So on knowledge base, we've stored our CSPs. So I find that the easiest way to pull it up. So I'm going to pull up the seed oils ones first and show you how I created this map of X's. So I'm going to go to the seed oil CSP, and I'm pulling that up, and I'm just going to scroll down to where the hotspots start. So this first hotspot, access to agricultural inputs on farm smallholder production. So the first step would be to go to that hotspot KPI map and say, okay, I need to find this hotspot. So it's sorted in, well, it should be sorted in alphabetical order. It's actually not. Let's do that. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm looking for access to agricultural inputs on farm smallholder production. So here it is. So I find this hotspot and it says, if this hotspot is in your product, you need to make sure that this KPI is in your product. So smallholder farmer challenges on farm. That's the KPI that I need. So over here when I was creating this map, I have all of these KPIs. So if you'll scroll down here, we'll see the, where is it? Smallholder farmer challenges on farm. So seed oils needs this KPI, so I put an X here. All right, let's go to the next one. Access to microfinancing services on farm smallholder production. Okay, so I'm going to go find that hotspot in this list, and here it is. And it looks like the same KPI is used to address that hotspot, so we've already got an X there, so we're good to go there. The next one is child labor use on farm. So from my list, and we talked about it earlier, there's child labor use, so I need the child labor KPI. So if I scroll up here, let's see, child labor, got an X there, okay. The next one, crop protection chemical application on farm. All right, let me find that one. And that was one of them that had 3. So 1, 2, 3, those are the KPIs that I need in my product. So to remember those and go back to this sheet. Okay, we had the human toxicity KPI. Okay, I put an X there. We had the integrated pest management KPI. Okay, put an X there. And then the biodiversity management. Okay, put an X there. And you basically just continue this process all the way down through the hotspots, through the additional issues and stakeholder concerns that there are. And you know, sometimes there might be slight naming differences, like this one. It has soy and palm oil in parentheses. That is not communicated in our list, so I will just be looking for this. But it's pretty straightforward, and if you ever have questions about the list, feel free to ask questions. So yeah, so basically what I did is for each one of these batch 8 products, I pulled up the CSP, I followed this process, and was able to develop this map that we're looking at right now. And the next thing I want to talk about is where these KPIs are actually stored in the database. So I have this in column C over here, and then I've also included it in column B on our Google Doc. So I'll show you, for example, you can see I've put in green that I've already completed the agricultural input KPIs. So I'll just go ahead and show you where those are. So let me pull the database up. So if you're starting from the home page and you want to get to this, the quickest way I think to get to the list of KPIs is to go over here to list. Scroll down and click on this list called Key Performance Indicators. Okay, now let me pull this up. I put product or group right here. So we've actually stored kind of these synthetic product categories in the database. So in the database, these will look like product categories. So if I filter by the product category, agricultural inputs, and they'll show up. So under here, remember I started at home. I went to list, go to Key Performance Indicators, and then here in related product categories, I'm going to filter and click on agricultural inputs. Now you'll see all of the KPIs that are in this group called agricultural inputs. And so let's say we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Going back to my sheet, that makes sense. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So there they are. So let's start with the first one. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do the checks for that KPI for all of these products at the same time. So the way that we have it set up, it's actually more efficient for one person to edit this KPI for all of these products at the same time. And I'll show you why. This window over here, you can see both screens. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Air emissions discharge, fertilizer manufacturing, ammonia production. Okay, so I'm going to go to this KPI, and I'm going to say edit item. That'll take a second to pop up. So as you can see, it takes a while for these things to pop up. And this is yet another reason why it's more efficient to do it for everybody's product category at the same time. Because if we had people trying to get in and out of that, 8 different times over we have 8 products, it's just a lot of extra time. So I pulled this up. Now the first thing you want to check is in these categories, you want to make sure that if there's an X here, then the KPI is in that product. And if there's not an X, that KPI is not in the product. So to look at that, we need to be looking right here. So let's check seed oils, for example. And I've already done this, so all these are going to be correct. But we'll go through some examples in a second that I haven't gotten to yet. So we'll start with this. So seed oils. Now, if it is in the category, then seed oils will be over here on the right-hand side. If it's not in the category, then seed oils will be over here on the left. So, like I said, I've already added it, so it's over here. So I'm going to just click in here and do a search. So I'm going to start typing in SEE, and there it goes. So seed oils, you can see, is in here. Okay, so we're good there. All right, the next one, sugar. So sugar should not be in this product. So it should be over here on the left-hand side. So let me make sure that's true. Okay, and there's sugar, including sugar beet, and that's it, and it's not in there. So we're good there. All right, the next one, high fructose corn syrup. It should not be in the product, so it should be on the left-hand side. Yep, we're good. Okay, beans. Okay. Nuts. All right. Tomatoes should be in there, and here it is. I see it already, and potatoes also. So we're good there and there. And then stone fruit should not, so it should be on the left-hand side. Okay. Now, if these were off, we would, just use these buttons in the middle to move things to the left and right side like they should be. Okay. Now, from our hotspot KPI map, I need to go back and see what hotspot or hotspots are supposed to be attached to this KPI. So going back to that map, I see here it is. The hotspot has the same name, air emissions discharge, fertilizer manufacturing, ammonia production. So what that means is that looking over here in my KPI screen, the hotspots, additional issues, and stakeholder concerns that are attached to this KPI should have that name. So everything that is called that should be on the right-hand side, and everything that is not called that should stay on the left-hand side. Now, these lists are sorted in alphabetical order, which makes that easier. So I just want to run my cursor over these and make sure they all have the correct name. It looks like we're good with this list. Okay, it looks like we're good here. And you'll notice that one had a little bit of a different name. We're planning on changing that soon, so I know that one's okay. But I also want to go to the top of these lists and make sure that there's not one hanging out over here. So, there's air quality, but not air emissions. And I don't see one down here. I also don't see one down here. So that looks good. So I'm going to save that. Okay, now we're not finished yet. Now that we've added the hotspots, we need to also add the improvement opportunities. So I'm going to click on that again. But this time, instead of edit, I'm going to go to KPI review. I'm going to click that. So KPI review is where you edit the improvement opportunity. Now, the way that this logic works, the only improvement opportunities that show up for you to even be able to add are improvement opportunities that are connected to the hotspots that you've added. So if you remember, we added air emissions discharge, fertilizer manufacturing, ammonia production. We added those hotspots in the previous screen. Well, now the only improvement opportunities you're seeing are the ones that are attached to those hotspots. So that's why I was saying, before when we had this general rule of any improvement opportunities that are attached to the hotspot should be moved over. So basically what that translates to is any improvement opportunity that shows up in this list should by default be moved over unless there's a really big exception. like for example, the mapping improvement opportunity, but I don't see that one in this list. So for the most part, we should add all, just by default, we should add all those improvement opportunities. And that actually makes it quicker for the work that we're doing. And I'll show you one that I haven't done yet, and that'll make more sense. But they've all been added because this screen is blank. They're all over here, so we're good. So I'm just going to save that. Okay. Now this is the agricultural input ones, and you can see they're all green, and I've already done them. But let's do one that I haven't done yet. Let me find a good one and check something real quick. Okay, this will be a good one, energy consumption distribution. So we're working on this one right here. I'm going to highlight that in a different color right now so I can see it better. Okay, that blue. All right, so here is the KPI, and the way that I was able to find it, you know, if I was starting from scratch, just one more time for you. If you're on the home screen, go to List, go to Key Performance Indicators, and then in related product categories, you know, it says this one is in distribution, so I'm going to say related product categories equals distribution. There it is. And that's going to pull up all the KPIs that are in that group. So here's the KPI we're talking about. So I'm going to just really quickly edit this item just like we did before. I'm going to make sure that these product categories are correct. Okay, now I'm going to actually break all this just so I can demonstrate how it works. I'm going to get rid of all the work that's been done. We can start from scratch. Okay, so we're looking at this map and we say this KPI should not be in seed oils. So I'm going to make sure that seed oils is on this left-hand side. Is that true? Yes, it is. There it is. Okay, we're good there. Now sugar, let's check that. Also good. High fructose corn syrup. Okay. Beans. Okay. Nuts. Okay. Tomatoes should be in there, so it should be on this side. There it is. Potatoes should be in there. Okay. And some fruit should not. Okay. So we have all the correct product categories in there. All right. Now, one little trick. When you first, so these windows are very small, and you cannot see the whole hotspot name. So just a little trick. If I were to come in this screen, I just moved things backwards so it doesn't apply right now. But if you ever have a case where you're scrolling your cursor over something in here and this little name is not popping up where you can see, then what you can do is you can click on one and you can add it and remove it. And when you do that, then you can hover your mouse over and see the titles. Now, that didn't work in this case because I had already removed things and put them over here. But if you ever need to know what the name of this is and you can't see the whole thing and it's not popping up, just try that little trick of adding and removing. It'll keep it highlighted so you can keep your space, but it's really helpful to be able to scroll over and see the names and everything. Okay, so what hotspots need to be attached to this energy consumption distribution KPI? Well, remember from our map, it said that they have the same name. So energy consumption distribution KPI has the energy consumption distribution hotspot. So I need to look for any hotspots, additional issues, or stakeholder concerns with that title, and I need to move all of those over. So, like I said, they're in alphabetical order, so we can just scroll down to the E's and start with this one here. Okay, we're in this, and you can see there's tons of them with that energy consumption prefix. We have no idea what it says after that. And so if I wasn't able to see it, what they were called, I would just add and remove, and then I would be able to. Okay, so let's start going through and seeing. All right, I hover my mouse over, that's animal farm operation, so I need to get down to the D's. That's consumer use, and you go farther. Distribution. So this one is not, this one is. Okay, now there should be some after it since they're in alphabetical order that are also called that. So that one is, yes, 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 no. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here. So I'm going to press Control-Shift, and it's going to highlight all of them in between. So I'm going to add all of those at the same time. And I know this, what I'm going to do, just ignore what I'm doing right here. This is something I put a tag on earlier, but I forgot to remove that tag, but that one should also be on. Okay, and then I'm also going to check an additional issues. So, protection, no, yes. Okay, what's this one called? Yes, no. Okay, so I need to add these two. Do the same thing for the stakeholder concerns. Yes, yes. Add those. Okay, now we're done with this part, so I'm just going to save. So I've checked all my product categories for the batch 8 products, and I've checked to make sure that all the energy consumption distribution hotspots have been moved over. So I'm going to save that. And remember, we're not done, so I'm going to click on it, go to KPI review, so that I can fix the improvement opportunities. Okay, and actually it looks like there's tons of improvement opportunities that have not been added. So some of them have, but like I said, these improvement opportunities would not be showing up at all unless they were connected to these hotspots that we added. So, you know, any improvement opportunity that's connected to these hotspots needs to be moved over unless there's a weird exception. But there's not any here. So I'm just going to highlight this entire list, and I'm going to move them all over. There's no real complicated decision-making going on there. We're just, by default, moving them over and clicking Save. And that's why it kind of saves some logical time, too. All right, so now we're done with that one, so I'm going to mark that in green on our sheet. All right, now I'm going to go through one more case that's a little bit more complicated, and then I think we can be done. So you'll see there's all these different groups here. We've got agriculture input, consumer use. We just did a distribution one. There's processing and manufacturing. But there's this one called commodities or produce, depends on the product. So what we've got going on here is that you'll see at the top, I've labeled what each of these are. So it's seed oil, sugar, corn syrup, beans, nuts, tomatoes, potatoes, and stone fruit. So we've created KPIs in the database, and we've separated some of them into two groups because later on when we go add the related information, there's some related information that usually applies to produce products, but it does not apply to commodity products. So we've actually created two sets of some of these KPIs in the database. So any of them that say commodities or produce, like biodiversity management, that means that there are two of these KPIs in the database. There's one in the commodities group, and there's also one in the produce group. And so, for example, if I have an X here saying seed oils needs this KPI, then I need to make sure that I'm pulling the one from the correct group to put in seed oil. So for example, seed oils is coming from commodities, so I need to make sure that I've added the biodiversity KPI from commodities and not produce. And then vice versa, if potatoes needs biodiversity KPI, I need to make sure that I've added the one from produce and not commodities. So let's go through an example. All right, so I showed you how to get to this KPI list. I'm not going to do it again. I'm just going to go to related product categories. Let's do commodities first. Okay. I think this is a mistake. This one shouldn't be in here, so I'm going to clean that out later. So there should just be one biodiversity management KPI in this product category, and this I know to be the correct one. So I'm in commodities, and I'm going to edit the biodiversity KPI. Okay. I'm going to highlight this in blue so I can look at it really easy. Okay, so we've got seed oils. We need to check seed oils. So seed oils is a commodity. It does need to be in there. So I'm going to see, is it in here? No, it's not. I'm going to find it. There it is. I'm going to add it over. Okay. Then there's sugar. Sugar is also in commodities. So I need to make sure it's on here. Is it? No, it's not. So let's add it. I just double clicked it, or you can click it and click the add button. It doesn't matter. High fructose corn syrup. That is commodity. Needs to be in there. I'm going to search for it. I'm going to add it. Okay, beans, lentils, and peas. Commodities, again, need to add it. Okay, then there's nuts. It is in commodities. It needs to be in there. I need to add it. Okay, tomatoes. It says it needs a KPI, but it's produce. So since I'm in the commodities version of this KPI, I actually need to make sure that tomatoes is not in there. So let me see if that's true. It should be over here on this side, and it is. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. And the same thing for potatoes. Okay, we're good. And now there's one more. It's stone fruit, also produce. So I need to make sure it's over clear. Okay, we're good. So I've checked the product categories. And now, and this is a good example of what I was talking about earlier, I'm hovering my mouse over this, but I have no idea what the hotspot is called. It's not showing up. So I'm just going to click on one randomly, add, remove, so I can start seeing these pop-ups. Okay, so what hotspots are supposed to be tied to the biodiversity KPI? Let's go back to our map. Okay. So now I'm going to actually sort this list by the KPI title instead of right now where it's sorted by the hotspot title. So I need to find all of the hotspots that need to be tied to that biodiversity KPI. Sort this range. B. Sort. Okay. All right, so we got this biodiversity management KPI, and it's saying that it needs to have crop protection chemical application, land occupation, and land transformation. Those are the hotspots that need to be tied to this KPI. So what I'm going to do is, like before, I was just looking for one hotspot title in these lists, but now I have to check all three of these. So if any one of these three exists in these lists, then I need to add it over. So I'm going to check crop protection chemical application first. All right, so click here, do a search for a C, so I can go down there. Okay, here we go. So all the way from here to here, I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to add those. And let me check this list. I don't see one here. I don't see one here. Okay, the next one is land occupation. Let me see if that's over here. Okay, there is one. There's only one. Let me add it. There's one in here. Yes, add it. Okay, we're done there. Now the next one will be land transformation. So we can already see some right here. All those. We got one here. Okay, now we're done. We check to make sure that all three of those hotspots have been added. And you know, sometimes they may not be in there, but these are just the rules. If they do exist, then we need to add them. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And then we're not done, so I'm going to click on it. Go to KPI review. I'm going to add all of the improvement opportunities except for the mapping IO. So there's tons of them that haven't been added, so I'm going to add them all. Except for the mapping IO. So I need to make sure mapping is not in here. And yes, it is. So I need to get that out. Sometimes weird stuff like that happens. So if you'll see what just happened, I just clicked on this and moved it, and it moved all these over there. Well, we need to get those back. So just those. Okay, there we go. So all the improvement opportunities except for the mapping IO have been added. And I'm going to save, and now we're done with that one. Okay. Going back to my sheet, we're really only done with a portion of this because this is the commodities and produce KPI. So we've done the commodities version, but now we need to do the produce version. So right here in related product categories, I'm going to go to produce this time. There it is. Okay, and you'll see there's this biodiversity management KPI, so I'm going to edit that. Okay, start it back again. Okay, so seed oils is in commodity that should not be in the produce one, so I need to make sure it's over here. And it looks like it's somewhere, so I need to get it off. Remove that. Okay. Sugar also in commodities, it shouldn't be over here, but it is, so I need to get it off. High fructose corn syrup, I need to make sure that's not over here. Well, it is. Okay, beans. Remove that. Nuts. Remove. Okay, now we're to tomatoes. So tomatoes is produce, and it does need this KPI, so we need to make sure it's on here, and it is. Same thing for potatoes, and it looks like we're good. Stone fruit. Looks like we're good. Okay, now let's go to the hotspots. Now remember, we're going to check, so it looks like some have already been added, so I'm going to make sure they have the correct titles. And remember, we had, there's crop protection, chemical, land occupation, or land transformation. Any of those can be over here. So let's make sure these follow that. These all are fine. These are fine. Okay, but there might be some lingering in these lists over here, so I'm just going to double check it. So crop protection, chemical, I don't see it. I don't see it. Land occupation. Let's see it. Nope. And then land transformation. Not over there. So they've all been added. Okay. So we're good. I'm going to save that. And then we're not done. I'm going to click on it. Go to KPI review. And there's some improvement opportunities that need to go over there. I'm going to add them. And then I also want to check to make sure the mapping IO is not on there, and it is, so I'm going to get it off. And it did that weird thing again where it adds them, it takes them off, and it adds that. Do a search from that one more time. Yep, okay. So now this one is finished. So I'm going to save that. And now we're finished with the biodiversity KPI, so I'm going to make that green. Okay, so this is the process we would do, and we would just continue this on down through this map until we're done. So you see we've got a lot to go, but you know, I was kind of talking through it kind of slow to show you guys. So once you get the hang of it, you just start flying through these things, and it goes a little faster. So I'm going to continue doing this for the rest of these KPIs. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to ask, and good luck.